Hello. I'm gonna wait a little bit. Hi everyone. Oh, hi Jackie.
Hey,
Hey.
why are you so sparkly? How do I
Oh,
get?
I think I added a filter. I'm like I always like to go with a filter, but
Oh,
oh, I realized it's like legit sparkles everywhere.
that's what I said. I was like, oh, you're so
I didn't notice the sparkles. I'm feeling a little sparkly. It was my birthday yesterday, so I get to be
Yay,
sparkly.
happy birthday. We're gonna sing when
No, please don't.
you are. You have no choice.
Oh my gosh. So it is episode eight. Eight. Bringing local culture to a global marketplace with our guest for the second time. Again, Laura Cretney, thank you so much. She'll be joining us shortly. And yeah, we're just, I think we just had such a good time in our last conversation that we're like, we need to continue this.
Yeah.
We wanted to kind of touch base. Before we dive into the conversation, I'm going to do a quick mini advertisement of our new box. Oh my gosh, guys, legit, when I tell you this box is so filled with stuff, I am not kidding you. Like, I think I need to step back because it's literally so big with so much stuff. So this is our Refugee Led Box. If you don't know or haven't heard, I'm going to put this a little back. So we just launched our Refugee Led Box. We partnered with 8 refugee-led brands. And so what does that mean? People are like, what does refugee-led mean? Refugee-led basically is we've partnered with brands that were started by refugees, brands that support refugee initiatives, or employ refugees locally. So a lot of this was kind of thought out. This is a company that when I think you guys probably saw my video, this is like my favorite product in the box. I love a good cup of coffee. Jackie, you know, actually Jackie made me an incredible cup of coffee last time we were together. I am totally craving it. I need another one. But this is roasted with love here in Toronto, and Hale actually works to employ refugees locally here in Toronto. So you are receiving this entire bag in here. The value of this box is literally over $250. It's perfect for gift giving. It's also perfect to treating yourself. So, you know, just when you're like, I need something to make me feel better, just get yourself a box and you're good.
It is. I've been doing that with my women-owned box, actually. I've been like, it's like my thing I do. I go to my box, open it, like you'll pull product, feel really good. It's a really nice, yeah, like I mean, self-care is overused these days, I think, but it is. It's a really good self-care thing, you know, if you
I
want to.
do want to show you other favorites because I don't want to just say that like the coffee is my favorite and then other things are not. But my ultimate favorite thing, guys, you're not going to find this anywhere, is this.
Well, okay, so let's you may find this elsewhere, but not this particular one. And the reason being is why. These are handmade by an artisan in Palestine. And Nora spent like a considerable amount of time looking for this particular artisan and curating these like individual products.
Laura, yes, it's Palestinian. So this is made by a carpenter that works in olive wood. You can tell like every piece looks very different. And honestly, I use it now obsessively whenever I make a salad. It's like my go-to lemon squeezer. And it feels so good. The grip's so good. It just makes you feel like, you know, it just adds that extra touch when you're in the kitchen. This is also a sneak peek to what's coming next week, but I'm not saying anything. I've already given you too many hints. But this is just, it's so amazing. Every single piece is handmade. It's made from olive wood. You would think I'm lying when I say it smells like olive oil. like no joke. But it's so beautiful, and it's such a nice add-on that we have in the box, and we're so proud to have literally created over 1,000 hours of work just in the production of these, and it's just like it's something you want to get your hands on. Another really special thing that you will not find anywhere, it was exclusively curated for our box, is our embroidered apron. So these are hand embroidered apron in partnership with DEXA. And do you have one?
I don't have one. I'm going to grab my hot water for my coffee.
Oh, I don't know why I thought you were going to go grab an apron and give me a fashion show. But so these are hand embroidered aprons. This motif design is actually an olive motif design. And so we worked closely. And the apron's so nice. It has like a nice little pocket. You can put your lemon squeezer in there, and it would look really cool. But this is an apron. I want to give you I want to try to turn this into a mini fashion show. So you could literally put it on and then have your little pocket to put your little, your towel or anything. So these are handmade in Palestine, in Bethlehem, by a group of women collective in Bethlehem. Did I say that already? Yeah, I might have. It's a little wrinkled, so forgive it, because this is our sample box and I keep taking things in and out. But it's so nice. It's such a good durable quality too, because you don't want it to fall apart. You can put it in the wash. I've actually had, I have one, and I will just dump it in the wash, put it in the dryer, and it comes out brand new. And it's so amazing. And it's also nice. I'm a big apron fan because I always dirty my clothes whenever I cook, 100%, or you'll see splatters everywhere. And I also like this half apron because I feel like a full apron makes me feel like I have to go on full-blown cooking mode. And a half apron's good where I need to wipe my hands, or you need to just do your thing. So honestly, guys, I'm not kidding you. We in the curation of these aprons, we created well over 1,500 hours of work just in the making of these aprons. And it's something we're so proud to be partnering with DEXA. Like I said, this was exclusively made for the Sitti box. If you go to the DEXA's website, you will not find this apron. You'll find other beautiful products, but definitely not this particular apron that we're so happy to have.
And
so,
the motif itself that you see, it's embroidered there. That's a traditional Palestinian motif that represents the olive branch, right? And it's something that's so unique, and it really is just so gorgeous. And I think that to be able to have that particular motif and the history and the story behind it on something for Sitti is really special.
Yeah.
I don't
like that.
seen Tetriz and T, but she is a historian of Palestinian embroidery, and she's explained this before, where one of the things that we don't tend to understand is the story and history behind these motifs and what they do represent. And I think that's the thing. Some people might look at this and not necessarily.
You might just think it's swiggly lines,
or they might think oh, it's just or it's just a vine decoration. But yes, it's actually it is meant to be the olive branch, and so I just think that's so special for us to have that on our product.
And we were very careful to select this motif. We wanted something that represented our company, but we also picked colors that were bright, a little bit matching our new kind of branding, a little bit of the brand that we recently launched, kind of adding some color there. I also like that this apron is this schoolgirl uniform blue, because I feel and then it has a nice, when I say durable, I mean durable, guys. It's so good.
Handmade Beginnings asked, will they be for sale at this weekend's bazaar?
Yes, so we have, for those that are watching from Toronto or from the GTA area or Mississauga, we are having a pop-up at the Tawheed Community Center from 10 to 6. Our boxes will be on sale where you will get all these things that I'm talking about inside of the box. So you will see them. They are available for sale when you purchase this box. We may be running a promo on the day of the event for these boxes. So you'll have to come to see what it is. I won't tell you what it is. But you can also grab any of our items. We also suggest for people to pre-order. So you could make a purchase and select pickup option. And so when you come on Saturday, you've already kind of done your shopping and you can come, you know, take your time and browse, especially if you're a mother with kids. I know how hard it is to shop with your children. So if you've pre-ordered ahead of time, you don't have to worry about, you know, trying to worry about paying or anything like that, because it's already been done and we hand you over your, you know, your order, and then you can kind of browse out. There's some wonderful vendors that are going to be here this weekend, and a lot of goodie vendors too, like brownies and chai and cookies. And my bestie vendor, Emma Apothecary, is also going to be there. And our favorite like bookseller is also going to be here, for Douse Books, which I love his book selections. He's going to be here. And so definitely worthwhile. And it's welcome for the entire family. So yeah, we'll see you there.
Yeah. I wanted to, so after we discuss the box, I want to also talk a little bit about something that's come on our radar recently. We were having a conversation the other day with someone about the kind of the challenges very unique challenges for Afghan refugees coming into the US. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit and discuss because it's something that on this conversation, people who have family or friends who are who were evacuated from Afghanistan and recently resettled either in the US or in Canada. But particularly in the US, there's a new program right now that everyone should know about, and let your community centers know about, let your neighbors know about, your family members, extended family, if you're close with them. It's a program called Sponsor Circles. We're going to put a link to this in our show notes after today, but the US is just started this program. And basically, it's a program where you can become a certified sponsor circle, which means that you and your neighbors or whoever in your community kind of take on the tasks of helping a family or Afghan individual who has recently been evacuated and is currently living in very temporary situations here in the US. Helps them find housing, helps stock their pantry, connect them to schools, possibly for children in the area, providing like any additional income support. One of the biggest challenges for anyone coming to this country is finding a job. And especially if you're coming from a situation where you just didn't have any time to prepare your language skills, you're still working on your language skills, you're still trying to find some sort of steady place to live. It's really difficult to get a job when you don't have a permanent address and you don't have like English language skills. So this is an opportunity to possibly help find temporary income solutions for these families or even permanent income support. And so this is something that you can sign up for online. There's a program that the partner organizations include International Rescue Committee. They include actually Airbnb.org is part of the partner organizations on this in terms of private sponsorship, and our partners. We're a partner with Refuge Point in the Refugee Self-Reliance. So there's a lot of resources for this. So it's definitely not something you and your family or friends would do on your own. It's a whole set up program. So we'll provide a link to that in the show notes. But we really, really encourage anybody here who's in North America and in the US rather, to take advantage of this program and do your part, because it's a really unique opportunity. This is actually like historic in terms of the U.S. Taking up its mantle, so to speak, and really taking responsibility for these families that really deserve support.
We were talking about it, I know, in several kind of internal meetings of, you know, these thousands of refugees that have come in, but then don't have access to, okay, what now? You know, they've arrived. And it can often feel, you know, there is that sense of relief, like, you know, we found safe haven, but then it's the second challenge that rolls in, which is, okay, now what?
Yeah.
Now I'm in this brand new space and brand new country, brand new land, brand new city. I have to start from scratch. Some of these families, you know, they're having to learn a brand new language at such an old age as well. Just imagine, you know, people that are coming in with their parents, you know, 76-year-old that can't just enter the workforce as easily as, you know, we would like. You know, they can't just start from scratch because they're coming in trying to build themselves from nothing, basically. You know, there's a lot of, some of them just with whatever they were able to grab, if anything, right? If they even were able to pack a bag. And so these type of programs are really critical, and it's almost like an opportunity for communities to step up, essentially. And when we ask, you know, why don't communities step up? It's kind of like, okay, well, it's also, you know, individual actions that create collective change, and that's 100% part of that. And I highly, like, you know, Jackie said, if you are in the US, do check it out. We will be putting up the link. But if you're not in the US, feel free to connect with your local community center and see, are they doing any programs for, you know, newly arrived refugees or communities that do need support from time to time. And sometimes I know it seems like there's a lot of programming that happens, but there are a lot of people that fall through the cracks and will still are looking for ways to support. So never underestimate what kind of support you can provide. It's always good to kind of ask around and see, how can I contribute more? It could be, you know, furniture for someone that needs to furnish their homes, you know, that you can help with, or diapers that can be donated, or whatever it is. So yeah, definitely critical, definitely important. And also important that once the media hype is gone, that the situation is not necessarily gone. And I know sometimes when things are really hot in the media, everybody's talking about it, everybody is like ready to kind of jump in to do something. But then what happens when, you know, those cameras are gone, or when those journalists are no longer writing about their stories? It's a lot of people are left in the dark.
Right.
And what they sometimes feel are open-ended promises where they don't really know, you know, how to cross those T's and dot those I's, because they hear a bunch of promises coming in, but then they don't necessarily see action being put in place. So it's definitely important to make sure that we follow through, or even like just with communities that are doing, you know, these things. So
I just saw a message from Rube El-Wari. I apologize if I'm pronouncing it incorrectly, but they asked, can this be for any refugees or only Afghan refugees? So currently the program is specifically for Afghan refugees, Afghan newcomers to communities in the US. That being said, like Nora mentioned, there are probably, and so let me clarify that this program, it actually provides a whole set of processes behind the scenes. There's a system in place with the U.S. State Department that ensures that, you know, the community members are supported in their providing all this additional support as well to the newcomers themselves. So the Afghan refugees in particular, the Afghan newcomers who have come to the U.S. Recently, they are in a particularly unique scenario because of the emergent evacuation that took place. I that I don't know though, like Nora mentioned, if your community center or if your church or synagogue or mosque or whatever, probably, you know, you could definitely work with other refugees in your community. And you know who would be really helpful to go to find out if there are other refugees as well who need support in your local community would be if you contact the International Rescue Committee, IRC, or if you contact Lutheran Services. So these two organizations work across the US with refugee resettlement, and they have a lot of local hubs within different communities across the US to support those individuals. And they're always looking for volunteers. I mean, 9 times out of 10, they will have the opportunity to volunteer on their website, or they will connect you with another local partner who needs volunteers. So, you know, definitely, if there are no Afghan newcomers in your community who need support at this moment, like at this moment in time, then go to the IRC, go to Lutheran Services, and see which partners you can work with of theirs, wherever they are in your community, to help additional newcomers, additional resettled refugees, because they are everywhere. I mean, you know, they're in communities where you might not even realize it. So yeah, so I hope that answers your question. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, look who's here. Hi, Koru. So Koru is actually one of our distributors. We love them. We've been working with them for so many years. They've been, you know, key at supporting our brand from the very beginning. We're so proud to be working with them. So hi to the team, whoever's there behind the screen. So I don't know if Laura is still with us. I think she is, but Laura, if you are here, feel free to send me an invite. I think you have to request to come in. I don't think I can actually invite you without you requesting it.
Oh,
oh no, I can.
yeah.
Oh, I just found out. Okay, here, I'm doing it.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. How are you? And happy birthday for yesterday.
Thank you. Thank you. Honestly, it kind of didn't feel, so October is a big birthday month for us because it's like my two of my daughter's birthday and then mine. And so I feel like I'm birthdayed out by like yesterday. It's like, oh, I don't want another cake, please. I don't like, we have to finish the cakes from like the other birthdays. They're still in the fridge. But it was my daughter's birthday. When was it? On the 16th. And then it was my baby girl's birthday who turned 2 on the 25th. And then it's my birthday 2 days later. So it's crazy that like by the time it gets to my birthday, I'm like, I'm good. I've done enough birthdays. Yeah, like I'm good. I don't need you don't need to blow. But yeah, so yesterday my kids were like, are we gonna do a cake? And I'm like, I think we have a lot of cake in the house. Like we just need to go through that. But yeah, my sister surprised me with like 36 roses for my 36th birthday, and they were so beautiful, and they literally made my whole living room smell like flowers, and it was so sweet. And of course my mother, as always, just like cooked me a whole home cooked meal at home, and it was just so nice. And but yeah, I mean, it's another year, but it's always, I mean, the night before I actually stayed up till midnight, and then right before, I wanted to start my year with a prayer. So like I started, it was like 12:01 and everybody was asleep, and then I got up and I went to pray, and then I like made a special prayer. I was like, you know what, I just need to like make this year a good year, and you know, like make the efforts that we're putting towards whatever we're working to be kind of bountiful. And yeah, that's kind of how I started my year. And I was like, you know, I want it to be even more intentioned and more purposeful than before. And I hope that when we do kind of, as we grow and as we kind of have opportunity, it just, yeah, like my grays are there, you guys. They're there and I need to hide them. So like,
You look amazing. This is such a gorgeous example, though, of just being a bit more mindful about it and not just going through the motions, partly because you've been through the motions twice this month already,
Yeah.
but still just taking a minute to be like, actually, I'm so grateful that I'm still here. What do I actually want to do this year?
Yeah. Yeah. And I was kind of just thinking of, how, and I try to do this from time to time of like, okay, what are some goals that I'm trying to achieve? Not, and to be a little bit more mindful, because before you know it, I'm like, I was just looking at my daughter. I'm like, well, how did you turn 6? And weren't you just a baby? How are you 2? And so I think it's important to be a little bit more mindful. We don't realize, time is very fleeting, and living a life with intention is so critical and so fundamental. And so that's why for me, starting the day or like my year with a prayer was so critical, because it was just a sense for me to like turn inward and be like, okay, what is it that I want out of this? And so that's my little, that's how I kind of started it out. And I hope it brings forth, positivity in some sort of sense. But Laura, thank you so much for joining us again. We were on like cloud 9 talking to you last time. They were like, this is too short. We need to bring her back. This conversation needs to be retaken. And you recently got some stuff from us too, right?
Yes, I have. So I haven't actually been home. They're at home on the Isle of Man. So I'm going to see them next week when I go back. And I'm so excited. So I've got, for anybody who's tuning in from the Pink Gin platform, we are going to be stocking Sitti's beautiful Palestinian Tatari's masks, so face masks for Christmas, for the holiday season. So they will be going online at some point. And if you're on the Isle of Man, they'll be at all of our markets and events over Christmas. So I'm so excited to see them.
So if you're worried about high shipping costs or anything like that, it's better we always advise people to shop local, from your close by vendors. Like you said, if there's markets or anything like that. I know some people are always looking for these opportunities because, we hate shipping. Like it's as a small business, it's something that like creates a barrier for a lot of customers. And we're not all Amazon, so we're not all able to do that, prime delivery, prime shipping sometimes, but we do our best. And that's why when there are local vendors that do carry our products, we always tell people, these are local vendors you can shop from. You don't have to pay, duties or customs or anything like that. Just go shop the masks at Pink Gin or show up in a market, and then that would be really cool. So
totally. It's such a funny one because in so many ways, the internet has connected us with so many different people all over the world. And that's been such a huge opportunity for small businesses. I know for Pink Gin, a lot of our community are in the States, but then something as simple as shipping is still such a barrier for smaller businesses. It's so hard.
Yes, I totally agree. But I think, I don't know, I hope we can continue to find light at the end of the tunnel. I have read a lot of reports about congestion with shipping and things like that. And we won't dive into it in this conversation, but definitely another one. So basically, to pick up from our last conversation about impact and about the global marketplace, I want to dive also a little deeper about why is it, or like how, when you're working with Pink Gin and you're working with different markets and different vendors, one of the things that's often difficult and something that people like to track is tracking measurement, like measuring your impact with every purchase. And I know this is something we try to do at Sitti, and it's oftentimes difficult to kind of like pinpoint like a 1-for-1 type of model. A lot of people are used to the, you buy one shoe and then one shoe is donated, like a very Tom's model that we're very familiar with. What's something that you like to look for when you are curating different vendors on a global marketplace? Are you more conscious of like hours produced, or are you looking for something very specific in I guess your vetting process when you're sourcing vendors or clients or artisans that you work with?
So I think, so for Pink Gin, because we source from all over the place, we're not just sourcing from one country. I mean, we started the souk since COVID, so I haven't really been able to go and kind of vet people and meet with people. So that's been quite a challenge. And so it can be quite difficult sometimes to quantify that kind of thing. So the biggest thing that I look for personally is the story behind it. So I need to be talking to the people. I need to know exactly who I'm talking to, what their relationship to the business is. And I want to hear their story, not only so that I understand, but so that I can communicate that effectively with our community as well. And I think that that's something that one of the things we kind of touched on last time, talking about how to create a more inclusive global economy. I think that storytelling is such a huge part of that. Knowing where things come from, you need to understand, you need to know the story, and it helps you to connect with people and makes it, certainly made me anyway, a lot more aware in my daily life of the things that I buy that don't have a story or that I don't know where they come from. It makes me think, oh, maybe I should be looking elsewhere. And so I think actually we don't give people enough credit for what an impact that can have in their lives, just in terms of understanding the story of where something came from.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Jackie, I want to ask you, because I know you have a lot to share around impact measurement. And sometimes it's really hard to quantify how one purchase can lead to, X hours or X dollars or whatever it is. Walk me through that a little bit, or walk us through that a little bit, especially when measurement is not just about straightforward numbers.
Can I just jump in and say here before you
Yeah.
answer that question, how amazing your impact report was?
Oh.
The way that you're able to break all of that down. And as a business as well, it's not like you're a charity. It's not like you have to report on this stuff. I think it's just incredible to have that there for people to read, to see exactly where you're working, how you're creating that sustainable impact, making these communities self-sufficient, and just really breaking it all down for people. It was just amazing.
No, I think also it was an opportunity for us to put a magnifying lens on ourselves. I think that was when we did it. It was also an opportunity for us to create a measurement, and then we can then lean back on or look back at and say, okay, how have we improved? And secondary, creating greater transparency for our customers, right? But it's important that we track ourselves so that we are able to then create a plan for growth or improvement or better guidance.
Well, I think for us, it's also led us down a more strategic path as an organization, as a company that touts itself to be a social enterprise, to be impact driven. You really have to put your money where your mouth is, so to speak. And for us, it had been 7 years, and we knew this was something that we needed to do for ourselves, but also for our community. You want to be held accountable, and oftentimes it's really, you get caught up in the business of it, because business is literally a 24/7 thing, and we can tell you that there have been a lot of sleepless nights where over those years before publishing the impact report, it wasn't any sort of neglect to not try to do it or not wanting to do it, but it was this real need to just be intentional with our time, and we had to kind of put our foot down with ourselves. And even though we are a small business in the grand scheme of things, and a lot of small businesses don't publish impact reports, like you said, Laura, but the thing is that if we didn't do it now, then when? And I think that was really the question we kept asking ourselves. So when it comes to impact measurement for us, now metrics are always going to look different among different businesses, depending on their strategic goals. For us, our strategic goal is aligned, it's stated right in our mission. It's self-reliance through employment and through continuing educational opportunities. So what we measure is we use the Refugee Self-Reliance Index Survey as our primary tool of measurement. And that helps us gauge the metric of self-reliance, which is based on 12 different, domains that make up this holistic picture of a household, of a refugee family household. And that's very unique compared to a lot of metrics that look at individual impact, on a collective scale. Ours is looking at households. So we really think that that's important because, and this is also backed up by the research, the extensive research of the Refugee Self-Reliance Initiative and their partners, which is that the household level of self-reliance is what ultimately decides the success of not just adults in that family, but also children, right? And so we're looking at our impact on future generations, not just on existing adults who are in the workforce. So that's a short, very abbreviated answer to the question. Swiss Muslim asked, what topic are they talking about?
So we're talking about impact measurement and how companies can create a better measurement or an ability to track, how they're having an impact in their day-to-day business. Sitti, if you are not aware, we recently launched, or not so recent, our impact report, which is available on our website if you do want to click and dive deep and read through it. It is a hefty report, so I'll warn you from now. But it is an opportunity for you to learn more about the stats. One thing that it has been a learning opportunity for us, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jackie, but when we started tracking and surveying the community, we started initially with a much smaller circle that we were tracking, because we didn't want, we wanted to be intentional, and we wanted to be able to set the framework for ourselves before we expanded our beneficiaries, if you want to call it. And we started with our immediate artisans that we work with and looking at self-reliance on that perspective. But like Jackie said, we know that one person impacts an entire household. So one person creating self-reliance with one person, or financial independence for one person, will have an impact for an entire family. And so how does that ripple effect long-term matter? Why does it matter? And we often ask this, like, if we were as Sitti to close shop tomorrow and be like, all right, we're done, what does that mean long-term for the community? Why does it matter that we're there? Will people notice, or will the community notice if we're no longer there? How will it impact positively or negatively? And that's something we've asked ourselves multiple times, even prior to the impact report, is what long-term impact we make. And we always say, and I know we always emphasize long-term, because we know that one-time handouts are not enough to change drastically protracted refugee communities. And what do we mean by that? Is that these are communities that have been in these refugee camps for decades. And so to then have this one-off, like, oh, we did this one-off project and everybody got $50. Great. But what does that mean? Like, are they out of poverty? Are they able to get out of debt? Do they have outstanding debt that they can't get out of? How is it impacting more a long-term, financial, not financial, but like, how is it?
Well, how is
it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how are you going to see an impact, right? And we've talked about this as well. The term impact can have a positive or negative connotation. So also using the word impact can sound like very nebulous to some people, and impact can mean a lot of things. We can also refer to it as support, or again, using the term self-reliance, how does it improve or contribute towards self-reliance, right? So, for Sitti, and I'm curious to hear from you as well, Laura, what your experience has been with the other companies, the other artisans you've worked with. I'm going to actually lob this question over to you, because I'm really curious to hear how have you seen long-term impact in the companies, in the artisan collectives that you've worked with, because Pink Gin is now several years old. So yeah, explain a little bit to us where you've seen that long-term growth or impact in a positive way.
Sure. So before I answer that, I just want to touch on something interesting that you just raised a minute ago, which was when you said thinking about doing this impact report, if not now, when are we ready to do that? And I think that for a lot of small businesses, a lot of the terms around impact, around sustainability can be quite alienating. So things like due diligence, supply chains, like if you're a small business, you haven't necessarily started with the impact in mind, not in terms of the impact that you're having on your supply chains. But it might be something that you're really interested in. It can be quite hard to get into that if you're still small, you're still new, and you're thinking, oh, well, one day when I'm more established, when I'm making this much money, or when I've reached that milestone, then I'll be able to look at this and implement some of that. And that's something that I have caught myself thinking at times as well, subconsciously. And I've had to catch myself and be like, no, I need to be thinking about this from the outset. It's not going to work if I tell myself, well, in a year, when I've set this up, or when I reach this goal, then I can think about it. And so I think, going back to the question from before, probably the most important thing, and something that you can implement now, or that you can start to think about now, is your relationships. So thinking about the relationships that you have with the people that you're working with your suppliers, with your community, with your beneficiaries, if you're donating to charity, all of the people, all of your different stakeholders, thinking about, what do I know about them? How can I strengthen that relationship? How can I learn more and learn from them about the impact that my business with them, whatever it looks like, is having? And so I think that for small businesses that aren't necessarily ready to publish a 20-page impact report, you don't have to do that. You just have to start by thinking, what am I doing now? And what more can I learn from the people that I'm working with? And how can I strengthen my impact through the resources and the assets that I already have? And so I'd be interested, I will answer your question first, and afterwards I would love to hear from you about the choice to move towards a subscription box model. I'm assuming is allowing you to showcase a lot more brands and a lot more businesses working with refugees, or working with women, or having an impact. And so I'd be interested to know where the question of impact comes into that decision, because it seems like a way of reaching a lot more people and of broadening your impact, even if it's moving away or taking a slightly different approach to the approach that you started with. So going back to your original question about where I'm seeing the most impact, I think there's two areas of this really. One is in terms of the suppliers that I'm working with. Actually, three areas of this. One is the suppliers that I'm working with. And some of those have been, so for example, one of my suppliers was literally just starting out their business, and I was probably one of their first customers. And I have repeatedly ordered with them and seen them growing their business. And obviously I'm not responsible for that growth in their business. It's all the hard work that they're doing, and the other people who are buying from them as well. But being able to go on that journey with them and supporting them, not just through buying, but actually having a relationship with them and cheering them on and putting them in touch with other people and that kind of thing. There's so many different ways that I can support those artisans and those businesses other than just buying from them. And so that's something that I'm always trying to be aware of, and where I've had really wonderful feedback from those businesses as well, who really appreciate that support.
Can you give
another area?
Oh, I wanted to ask really quickly before you move on to the next area, can you give a quick example of one of those moments where you weren't just a retailer purchasing, but you were also supporting them in other ways as they started up their business or got things going?
Sure. So one of our products was sourced from, has been sourced from a social enterprise based in Damascus, from a women-led business in Damascus that's employing local women who had lost their incomes to the conflict. And so I had placed an order with them, and it was taking weeks and weeks and weeks to come through. And I was sort of staying in touch with the woman running the business, saying, is everything okay? What's going on? How can I help? And it turned out that they were having a really, really difficult time exporting. They'd had their bank account closed. They'd had various other logistical problems due to the fact that they were based in Syria, which we see so much, which happens all the time, especially with small businesses that don't have the infrastructure, they don't have a legal team or whatever to deal with this stuff as it comes up. And so that was an example where, okay, I was waiting for a relatively small order of clutch bags that probably meant relatively little to their business compared with some of the other orders that they were having, even though, I knew what the labor that had gone into those clutch bags and everything. And so I remember vividly this email exchange with this Syrian lady who runs this business, and she's saying like, thank you so much for caring. Nobody really asks me this. And just actually having that conversation and saying, you know, I'm obviously not in the same situation, and I don't have the community of women who are totally dependent on my business like she does. But I've been there with the banks when they say, oh, you're working with businesses in Syria. Don't want to deal with you, whatever. I'm sure you guys have had similar situations. But just being able to have those frank conversations and showing that, just saying, look, I'm here if you want to talk about anything, if there's anything else that I can do, I can wait for my order, don't worry, like that kind of thing as well. I think people underestimate what a difference that can make.
Oh, did we lose?
I think there's just a lag.
Oh, okay. I think that,
but she touches on a really important point, and I think, Laura, you touch on a really good point around creating those personal connections, and then knowing that, like, you know, oftentimes a lot of artisans, and this is kind of a little bit behind the intention with the boxes, it was 100%. I know she's lagging, so I'm going to keep talking just in case. But yeah, I think she might be able to still hear us, but her video may not work. Or if it's easier, you can turn off your video and then turn it on again. Okay, so I know that's something we've experienced where being super intentional. Oh, we lost her. Maybe she'll join soon. We'll give it a minute. Maybe she'll come back.
Well, and just being understanding. And she has two other points that she wanted to make, so I want to make sure we get to those. But yeah, I mean, just
she's back. Hold on.
Very patient and being understanding of the fact that these artisans, these communities are facing, oh, there you are. So we were just commenting on the fact that, you know, this is a situation that we find ourselves in all the time as Sitti, and we hope that other companies are doing this as well, is again having this understanding and compassion and empathy for the situation that a lot of times is completely out of the hands of these artisans or these collectives, which is that, you know, they're faced by all of these structural barriers, right? And whether it's shipping, you've got, you know, possibly governments in place who impose a lot of restrictions on and exporting. You have obvious socioeconomic barriers where, you know, they don't have the money to necessarily, like, you know, FedEx or DHL something on the spot. And it's really being compassionate and saying it's okay, like, we'll manage, you know, we're staying.
But also understanding, like, I know you guys saw before the beginning of this live, I was introducing our aprons and our lemon squeezers. Let me tell you how difficult it was to get them out of the country. It literally took us a month and a half, if not 2 months, in logistical coordination. The shipping companies refused, like, they just could not do it. And I won't dive into like detailed stories, but for those that are trying to get products out of Palestine, it's not easy. But then another thing to add to that is, when you do find products that are made in these very difficult communities, but then they're also, in your opinion, potentially overpriced, understand that, like, the shipping cost alone is sometimes as much as the cost of the product. And so it creates this incredible minimal margin for vendors when they are sourcing. So for us, we paid, oh my gosh, like a lot of money to get products out of Palestine. And again, it took over 2 months. We've had one canceled order after another. And the initial shipping company we were working with basically came and said, sure, we'll do this for you. Please have your team deliver everything to Tel Aviv. And we were like, they can't enter Israel. They're based out of the West Bank. They can't have accessibility. They can't just you know, put the products in a truck and drive over. There's like checkpoints, like there's logistical difficult like challenges to run this smoothly like it was a normal, you know. And they were like, well, we can't, like, they can't be picked up, they're going to have to be dropped off. And it was just so difficult trying to navigate and explain to my broker here in Canada, okay, well, there's difficulty, like they physically can't drop off these boxes. And it took a little bit of time and a lot of frustration for the person I was speaking to finally be like, oh yeah, there's like restrictions, they can't even go to that part of town. And so that's a tiny example of just that. And I'm sure a lot of artisans are feeling it. But it sometimes doesn't take away from the fact that these are incredible organizations doing such good work. And it's a shame not to highlight them. It's a shame not to give them the opportunity for global access of marketplace, because so many artisans have the ability or are already creating so many beautiful things. But it's just a matter of they don't have access to market. And access to market isn't just putting up a website and selling products and shipping. Like, there's just so much more detailed information that is entrenched. I know with some people, they have to get their products registered. It has to go through government registration. There are limitations of what can enter the border. There are duties that they have to consider. And then there's just such an erroneous costs that these artisans have to take on. They just can't afford it. Let's be honest, like, money talks, right? And if you don't have the money to fund a lot of these very mom and pop shop type of initiatives, then you can't continue, and they can only sustain themselves for so long in order to do that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I so. And on that note, you know, Laura, you were mentioning there were these two other kind of ways you can make an impact, and Pink Gin is kind of keeping an eye on that impact that you've made over the long term. What are those? I'm curious. What are those other 2 points, or I guess other 2 ways or avenues?
So the other 2 points that I was going to raise, so the way that our business model works is we try and buy from small businesses, social enterprises, artisans, and then we also give a third of the profits back to charities. So it's not just that we're kind of giving a donation to charity at the end, but it's that we're trying to include this idea of impact at every level. And so that's the second area, is when we do make those donations to charities, especially when we're able to do that on a regular basis as well, makes such a difference to the charities, and they are so appreciative of us doing that and having that relationship with us, even though it's only going to be a small amount probably compared to maybe some of the big fundraisers that they do or the big donors that they have. They really love that you're including that in your product and in your marketing and everything, and raising awareness of what they're doing as well. And then the third way is actually the feedback that we get, not just from customers, so from people that have bought from us. So Pink Gin initially was started around a blog, and we try and put out lots of educational content about the region for people who maybe aren't familiar with it. And so we've had a lot of feedback from people who have come across the page and knew nothing about the region, or have come across the page because they knew about a particular country, or they were sort of interested to learn more, who have found out things about the Middle East and North Africa that they never knew, have seen a completely different side to it than what they would otherwise have seen through the news or whatever. And so hearing that feedback from people as well, that they've learned something new while they're going to go and visit this country that they never thought to visit, is so satisfying for us as well, just to see that we're building those connections in so many different ways. One of the things that I wanted to comment on what you just said, Nora, which is so important, what you were saying touched on this idea of bringing politics into your business, talking about the structural barriers and the inequalities. And I think that that's something that we are seeing increasingly. Businesses are finding it more and more difficult to stay out of politics, or to keep politics out of what they're doing. I mean, politics has always been a part of every single business. Like we were saying last week, every single thing is political, but it's becoming increasingly difficult to avoid having those political conversations through your business, because there's this, I feel like, especially since the pandemic, there's this increase in kind of social consciousness of these inequalities and of some of these political issues. For example, with Palestine, I mean, we saw the conversations that have been happening around Palestine since what was happening in May. And I think that this is something which businesses can kind of harness and should be actually taking advantage of this and stepping back and having a conversation with themselves, with their team, and saying, how is our business political? How can we make it political in a positive way to make our business more inclusive and to contribute to a more inclusive world?
And I think that's such an interesting point you bring up. And gosh, I hate that we're
yeah, no, I think we have a little more time because we did start a little later. But just on that note, Laura,
yeah,
when things were getting really difficult in Palestine with Sheikh Jarrah and you know, just the uprisings that were happening.
By the way, they are always difficult. We
They're
don't
always, yeah.
Don't want to
it's
diminish
not a one, yeah.
it is always difficult in Palestine. I mean, Sheikh Jarrah was a particularly, you know, global story that made the news, but there are thousands and thousands of stories that are coming out of Palestine that never make the news. And so we do want to acknowledge that as well, that this was a particularly unique circumstance that kind of made headlines, but there, and this is globally too.
Yeah. I do want to mention, and with full disclosure, and I think it's important to talk about these things because sometimes we don't talk about it, is even as a company, even as a social enterprise, you know, with a mission for self-reliance, you know, employing Palestinian refugees in refugee camps, sometimes working with Palestinians inside of Palestine, we are sometimes put on the spot and asked by customers what our political opinion is. And it's happened multiple times in the past, even with customers that potentially could be really lucrative for us, and have asked us, you know, what's your opinion, and can you take a stance, or can you put something in writing that says X? And we were like, okay, well, this is our position, you know. And I know when, as a company, we are also very cognizant of anything we do is not just reflective as a social enterprise, but also is a reflection of our artisans that we work with. And we have to be very sensitive when it comes to the information that we share, because, like I said, we work with marginalized, already marginalized communities out of Jordan. So these are artisans with no citizenship. They are on temporary passports, you know, and don't already have a lot of rights. So if we do anything that could compromise their position in any way, we are putting them at risk. And so sometimes, even if I have very strong political opinions as Nora or as Jackie, we have to, as a company, have a very different perspective. Not that we're like going to be silent about certain things, but approaching it, we have to be cognizant of all of our stakeholders, that it's not just me and you, it's our stakeholders that are also part of this journey, and that we are a representation of them. We are telling not just our story, but their story. And so we have to make sure that they're okay with it. Is this something that they would be okay with? You know, we may be open about protesting freely here in North America or in the UK, but we don't know what that kind of information could be detriment to these communities, where if there is a protest, you better believe there will be police brutality potentially in these protests that are impacting these individuals that are making conscious decisions to protest. And do we want to put our community at risk for whatever reason if we were to advocate for something in particular? And again, we can try to be apolitical as possible, but as someone, and I say this as well, and I remember my professor telling me this back in, you know, my master's, when I was, you know, back in my uni days, everything is political. Your pencil is political. You know, the paper in front of you, everything that is around us in our global conscious place has a political stance, whether we want to believe it or not, or we want to buy into it or not. We're already doing it unconsciously or unknowingly. And so when we make a greater effort to read into it, and this is where, again, connects to like impact reporting and why do companies come out with this stuff and how does it all link? Because when companies are a little bit more transparent about the way they run their day-to-day business, it allows consumers like ourselves to be a little bit more conscious, like, okay, I know I can't tick off every single box with every single item that I'm, at very least, I can make a conscious effort of saying like, okay, I know, I know that I bought this bag and this bag has this impact, and I can track some sort of thing. And that might make us feel a little better, I guess. But at the same time, I think it's in small steps, right? Like we also can't be too hard on ourselves from that part.
Yeah. I think we're living in such an interesting time at the moment with the massive upheaval of the last 2 years. I mean, this pandemic has literally raised systems to the ground, and now everybody's sort of trying to emerge, trying to build back, trying to find normal or find a new normal. And I think this is such a great opportunity for us to take a step back and be like, do we actually want to go back to normal? I was at a talk the other day at the British Library in London. I don't know if you've come across Mona Tahawi. She's an Egyptian feminist, and she was saying, okay, in much more profane language than I'm going to say, like, no, we don't want to go back to normal. Like normal was social injustice, inequality. How can we come back from this and build a better world? Like, why do we keep obsessing over normal instead of trying to build a new normal? And so I think we're living in such an opportune moment to be having these conversations and to be thinking about, okay, how can we build better relationships with our stakeholders so that we understand the implications of what we're doing? How can we be political whilst maintaining the security of our stakeholders? And all of these kinds of conversations, I think it's such a great time to be having them with everything that's going on.
And you said, you kind of touched on something so on point, especially with this pandemic, is what is normal? What defines normal? And normal to me could be completely not normal to, artisans in a remote area. Normal to me of having fresh running water running through my shower is not necessarily the case at a refugee camp that doesn't have running water and has to, still boil water and, use that to take a bath, as an example, right? We define normal to what society tells us or what, we're accustomed to seeing, but it doesn't mean that we can't create our own normal for ourselves that are, more sustainable, more conscious, more, environmentally friendly, because we created a normal that is destroying our planet essentially, right? With, oceans filled with plastic and again, the list goes on. But I think it's up to us to start raising those standards, changing what that is. And like you said, this is an opportunity to do so, right? If it's going to be a time, it's going to be now or never kind of thing.
Yeah, this is such a difficult conversation because it touches on so many important areas and it can be so overwhelming. I mean, for us as business owners and for us as consumers as well, for us as people. I mean, we've got all the problems, we've got the environment, we've got the flow of refugees, we've got social inequalities, racism, so many different things and so many areas where we could make improvements or we could be doing more, and we feel like we need to be doing everything. And so it's important to remind ourselves sometimes, I think, just take a step back and be like, okay, I cannot do everything. It's not realistic. It's not possible. What are the areas where I can make a tiny difference? Mm-hmm. And I think we need to be having those conversations as business owners, as people running social enterprises, as consumers, and just as individuals within our community as well. I mean, we've talked a little bit about how important local communities can be. And so I loved what the project that you mentioned before about creating support networks for Afghan refugees in the US. That's an example of a way that you can help Afghanistan within your own community. You don't have to leave your local area. There's so much that you can do. And so I think just reminding ourselves sometimes, yes, it is overwhelming, especially with the 24/7 news cycle and our constant access to information, but it's just finding those little areas where we can make our own individual difference. Absolutely. What is your power? Where does your unique power and influence lie?
Right. I think that's such a great note to end on here. That's such a great message. And yeah, I think this conversation has circled back to that in a lot of ways, talking about doing your part on the Isle of Man and really taking everything that you've learned abroad and bringing it home. And I think that's really what we've felt as well. So yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your personal experience. And I mean, I still have all these questions. We could keep going.
We can. I'm just a little cognizant. I don't want to be kicked off with Instagram. I don't know if they've changed the rules from the 60-minute. I'm not sure for like IGTVs. But being conscious of not being kicked out really soon. I do want to thank you. I swear, I know this sounds like deja vu, but we should have another session soon. But
I'm so energized though. It's amazing.
I love it. I love it. Please do share information about the markets that you're going to be part of. We'd love to share it on the Sitti page, especially for customers that are on your side of the world. I know that we do a lot of local stuff here in Toronto that we're part of, but it's always good to know, partners that or companies that we love that are also doing some great stuff around the world that people can join and learn more about. So please do share that information. We'll share it in our stories so that others can have an opportunity to learn more, or we'll include it in the show notes as well with any links that you have. We'd love to kind of share that information. We are so grateful for your time for this wonderful Thursday. I really do feel a little like energized. I'm like, oh my God, there's so much work to be done. But in a good way that like just aligns us with when we work with like-minded companies and enterprises, it really sheds a positive light of, oh, look, we're all doing our little parts. And sometimes it feels very lonely, or it feels like, oh my gosh, we're tackling on such a big issue, and I don't think we can, and we're not going to solve the world's problems, but we can do our part in the little ways in our day-to-day operations, in the day-to-day work that we do to try to make those small differences. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time to see that engine rolling and to see that impact, or that support impact in a good way, not in a bad way, to showcase it essentially. So yeah, I guess it's the keep pushing through, keep hustling through. Thank you so much, Laura. Jackie, thank you so much. I think our next month is going to be, I'm not sure if we're still doing something. Oh, it's November. Why did I think it's November and next month is December? Guys, forgive me. Oh my gosh.
Always ahead. You're always thinking one step ahead.
Next month will be our last episode of Sips with Sitti for the year. We're going to December, where I believe we're going to be taking a break from Sips with Sitti in December so that we can prepare for the upcoming year. That's not to say we probably won't have other events going on Instagram, so keep an eye out for those. Thank you so much, Laura. It's been an honor and a privilege to spend time with you. We thank you, and we know how insanely busy you are. You do amazing work, and we're just so grateful for your time. So thank you.
Thank you so much. This has been such an empowering and uplifting conversation. Like you were just saying, Laura, sometimes it feels like you're all on your own, especially as a small business owner in this remote world that we're living in. Sometimes it just feels like it's just you and your computer. And so having these conversations who share those values and that worldview is just so inspiring. So thank you so much for including me and for sharing your time and your platform with me. I'm honored.
Thank you. And we are a lot closer than we sometimes can feel behind our little computer. And it's such a pleasure. Maybe we'll do another guest next year with you, which would be really wonderful. We definitely would want an update. Thank you again. Thank you to everyone watching. If you did miss this, check out the IGTV live that we'll be posting, and the show notes that we'll have up on our blog within a week or so. So have a great end of October. If you're going Halloween trick-or-treating, please be safe. All right. Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.